Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. All right. Good evening. Now, Jai Hind, good evening. So let's understand how this is going to work, right? Let's understand how this is going to work. Now, this evening, we have all evening batches that have been combined together, right? All evening batches have been combined together. So if I am able to recollect, I think B, D, F, G, right? All of these similar batches, N, I think they should all be the evening batches that have been combined. A lot of you requested the institute and also requested me that the last few days that the classes happened physically at the institute, unfortunately, a lot of you were not able to attend the physical classes because of illness, because of certain issues. So what I've decided and what I'm going to do here today is, and please pay absolute attention to this, what we're going to do is we're going to start from scratch from theme number 3, which is fundamental rights, directive principles of state policy, and fundamental duties. In most of your evening batches, in a few of your evening batches, in a few of you, some portions of this would have already been done till, let us say, the layer 1 of it. In some, 1 or 2 topics of layer 2 may have also been done. So you have the absolute freedom to attend everything right from start, right? Everything right from start. Or you also have the opportunity, you also have the absolute freedom to attend right from where your classes were left out. Okay? Right from where your classes were left off. Okay? So you can attend as per your ease. We're going to start with theme number 3, which is rights, directive principles, and fundamental duties. If you want to attend everything from scratch, go ahead. If you want to only attend whatever is something that you've not covered, you can attend from there itself. All right? Understood? Okay. I'm just checking the volume. I think the volume is okay. There's absolutely no problem. Uh, Please check from your end. Is the volume okay? Is everything fine with the volume? Yes? Everything is fine with the volume on our end. The volume might be an issue from your end. Okay, good evening, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome in the evening. Now, today, the class is approximately from about 5 to 7 o'clock. As you understand, today is a last minute class because my colleague Vibha sir wasn't available, had to attend to something rather urgent and pressing, and therefore, I'm taking a class today at 5 o'clock. But from tomorrow onwards, my class is going to be from 7 p.m. to approximately 9 p.m. And these are going to be continuous classes, and in one go, in the next 15-20 classes or so, I will finish your entire polity syllabus for all evening batches in one shot. Okay? So I hope this is okay. I hope this is Perfectly fine. Right? Okay. Excellent. If the volume is a problem, just give me a second. I'll wear a jacket. Okay. This should be fine. This should be okay. You shouldn't really have a problem hearing me anymore. All right? Fine. Okay. Raksham, please read Article 368 and then ask me that question. Chaliye. So let us start. We're okay? We're good? Everybody's fine with this now? All right. Chaliye. We're going to now begin with theme number 3, which is fundamental rights, directive principles of state policy, and fundamental duties. As you would know, fundamental rights are in part 3 of the Constitution. Directive principles are in part 4 of the Constitution. And fundamental duties are in part 4A of the Constitution. The very fact that you're able to see a capital letter after the number 4, which means fundamental duties were added later to the Constitution of India, and they were added through the 42nd Constitutional Amendment 1976. Now, unlike our previous two themes, or unlike, say, the theme number 2, which is preamble, territory and citizenship, where in most cases the topics of the preamble, territory and citizenship were not particularly codependent on each other, were not particularly correlative of each other. There was some conceptual congruence, there was some conceptual overlap. We were able to understand citizenship better with certain foundational concepts of territory, but largely the topics under theme number 2, which was preamble, territory and citizenship, could be studied in isolation, could be studied in silos. But that's not the case with theme number 3. And I choose to teach you theme number 3 in an integrated manner. And this theme, though incredibly important for your civil services preparation, they have guaranteed questions in the pre and guaranteed questions in the mains. This particular theme is often overdone, overindulged with an unnecessary amount of technicalities which are often not needed as far as the exam is concerned. So we have to be very careful to the depth and to the scope of which we are going to be studying theme number 3, which is rights, principles and directive and fundamental duties. So our first order of business is to identify an outline and know exactly how we are going to be studying theme number 3. Our standard format sort of remains the same. Our standard format is that layer 1, which is conceptual and factual in nature, therefore important for the prelims exam. And then we've got layer 2, which is analytical in nature and therefore important for the mains exam. And we will connect layer 1 to layer 2. We will connect layer 1 to layer 2 through a phase. This connecting phase is also equally important and will be able to make you understand the progress of our discussion in a concise and clear manner. So, what is it that we must study as far as the prelims is concerned, as far as these three topics are concerned? What are the kind of questions that are asked? And on the basis of the kind of questions that are asked, we should be able to identify, we should be able to draw a boundary to the matter. Okay, so let us look at it. Let's understand what we're essentially going to be doing as far as the outline is concerned. So let us start. So the first element that we're going to be studying is the core features of rights, directive principles and duties together in a comparative basis, right? These core features include the origin, this includes interrelationship, this includes legal status. Legal status includes two things: enforceability and the process for changing these. So, two things: enforceability and amenability. And so on and so forth, right? The core features of the three. Once we've understood this, we will then move to understanding very specific kind of questions that are asked in the pre. These are trick-based questions. These are identification questions. These are identification questions. Okay. So when we do identification questions, we'll understand how to identify which one is a fundamental duty or a directive principle of state policy, and if it is a directive principle of state policy, what kind of a directive principle of state policy is it, right? Features, as you would also know, would include a lot of discussion, a lot of understanding into a lot of details of it, such as the classification and so on and so forth as well. And from classification, we would largely be moving on to identification. Once we are done with this, we will move to the phase part, which connects us to layer number 2. And we will, article by article, go through each of the substantive rights from articles 14 to articles 32, which are for fundamental rights, and we'll look at a cursory glance of directive principles and fundamental duties, but our primary focus is going to be to read through each of the articles. We'll do this article by article, clause by clause, and understand what exactly is it which is mentioned in our rights. So this is the cursory glance. Once we are ready with the cursory glance, once we've gone through the basic provisions of our core fundamental rights, we will then move to layer 2 of our preparation, which is largely important for the means. What is it that we should be covering as far as layer 2 is concerned? From legal status, which is amenability and interrelationship, you will understand that they give birth to two extremely important doctrines. Doctrines are nothing but principles of the Constitution which have been developed by the court of our country, by the apex court of our country. So we will take a magnifying glass, look at the interrelationship and the amenability, and we will understand two extremely important doctrines. So, from amenability of fundamental rights, we will understand a very important principle called the doctrine of basic structure. The doctrine of basic structure. And from interrelationship, which is the relationship between fundamental rights and directive principles, we will also understand an interpretation called the doctrine of harmonious construction. The doctrine of harmonious construction. All right? Extremely important. Both of these are very, very likely to be asked in the exam. And then we will look at certain rights-based issues. We will look at certain rights-based issues and we'll cover them across all the three. And now you would understand why I would do this. So for example, we will look at issues pertaining to Article 19. Under Article 19, we'll look at issues with respect to the press, issues with respect to dissent, right? Issues with respect to censorship. Now, while fundamentally the primary issues around press is Article 19, say the freedom to circulate a publication, for example, the freedom to be able to broadcast one's thoughts, the freedom to be able to have independence of press, the lack of dedicated, defined rights for our journalists in our country. When we discuss all of them, no doubt, fundamentally, they are principally a violation of Article 19 if they are an issue. But they also have an overlap to 14 and say 21 for that matter, right? Extremely important. Then we will also understand, say for example, censorship. We look at film censorship, we look at OTT, nowadays OTT censorships in the form of the IT rules of 2021, where we're looking at self-regulation of several platforms such as Netflix, such as Amazon, Disney Hotstar, and so on and so forth, right? We'll look at certain censorship issues. And again, principally, no doubt, they are issues of Article 19, but they also have some amount of overlap to Article 14 and 21 as well. So we'll do them with focus on 19, but we'll also spend some time on the other rights as well. Similarly, we'll pick up Article 21, and when we study Article 21, we will obviously pick up, say, LGBTQIA. As LGBTQIA plus, no doubt is an issue of personal liberty, but it is also correlative to expression. That is why I do them collectively, because it's never just about Article 21. Similarly, we will cover privacy, we will cover euthanasia, and so on and so forth. Euthanasia is nothing but mercy killing, right? Cover euthanasia and so on and so forth. I will also get into a reservation debate in just the right amount of depth that is needed, so that you understand exactly what it is that we have to get into. And we'll also look at certain larger issues in and around secularism or religion. We'll also spend some time on uniform civil code, right? And these are the larger things that we should be covering in layer 2. And once we are done with this, the last part of layer 2 a more generic evaluation of each of these three parts. We will look at reforms that can be made to rights, directive principles, and fundamental duties. So we'll start from here, then we will use the bridge, understand this, understand each of the important articles, and then we'll move to a deeper and an analytical understanding of each of the following articles. All right. So this is largely how it is going to work. This is largely what we intend to do in the defined space that we have. Right. So this is the outline. I'll give you about 30 seconds to have a look, about 30 seconds to note this down in case you want to, and then I can continue with the rest of it. So this is exactly how we will continue, and we'll study part theme 3, which is rights, directive principles, and fundamental duties. Okay. Clear layer 1, bridging it by phase to layer 2, and finish layer 2. All right. Now, right at the very beginning, let us understand certain key insights from previous year questions as far as the prelims and the mains is concerned with respect to theme number 3. What are some do's and don'ts? What are some probabilities and improbabilities as far as our prelims and mains is concerned? So let's understand this. Let's look at certain basic ground rules. So first, when we try to understand the prelims part of it, at no point of time the UPSC will ask you technical details, which means clauses and subclauses of the articles pertaining to rights, directive principles, or duties. In fact, directive principles barely have a few subclauses, a few of them do. Duties don't even have subclauses as such. But yes, as far as rights are concerned, you will have several clauses and subclauses, and therefore students tend to get extremely worried and get carried away, and they tend to memorize what is called the text of all the fundamental rights. The chances of you being asked this is negligible. Nobody is going to ask you in the prelims, for example, which of the following are reasonable restrictions under Article 19, Clause 2. Nobody is going to do that. Never ever in the prelims are sub-clauses or technical details ever asked as far as the exam is concerned, right? As long as you broadly know what fundamental right corresponds to what, you are okay. You should know 21 is right to life and liberty. You should know 18 is about abolition of titles. 17 is about abolition of untouchability. All of that is fine. As long as you know those things, are okay. You don't need to know what is 18 clause 1, what is 18 clause 2. Nobody is going to ask you those kind of questions. They're often and in all circumstances not asked in the exam. Third, you often get application-based questions, okay? You often get application-based questions, which means they will take a real-life issue and they will ask you which fundamental right seems to be violated, right? Again, no technical details are ever asked, But broadly, now there is a trick to this. The trick to this is, unless it is very specifically derived, unless it is very specifically derived, and one of the options contains Article 21, please be rest assured, please be rest assured that the answer is going to be 21. Give you a simple example. A few years ago, in one of the previous year questions, the UPSC had asked, the freedom to marry as per one's own choice is a fundamental right under what? There were several options. One of them was the freedom of speech and expression. The other was right to life and liberty under 21. There was, I think, something to do with religion also, Article 25, the freedom to conscience, practice, profess and propagate religion, Article 25. And then I think there was another article to do with Article 14 or something as such. Right. Now, that's the interesting part. You would be surprised, a lot of the students who were preparing for a year got confused and marked Article 19 and came back, because they said the freedom to marry, and marriage is a form of expression, so freedom to marry has to be an extension of Article 19, because Article 19 also says I have the freedom to reside anywhere I want to travel anywhere I want to express myself in anyhow I want to. Valid, your points are absolutely valid. But all of that can also be explained when you have personal liberty guaranteed to you under Article 21. Why worry when Article 21 is here, right? So in such a scenario, when you get a question and you're confused and one of the options is Article 21, please make sure that you mark that as the correct answer, okay? There are some very specific derivations. For example, we will study how right to information is an implied fundamental right under Article 19. Now, in such a scenario, if Article 19 is in one of the options, then of course Article 19. This is called the proximity trick. For me to express myself freely, I should be able to obtain the necessary information that helps me articulate my opinion freely. And because fundamental rights are largely available against the state, and we'll come to that later, because they are for me to keep a check on certain transgressions by the state, which basically means if I don't have the freedom to obtain information, I don't have the freedom to freely express my opinion, even if the opinion is on the government or of the government, right? So that is why Article 19 is a derivative fundamental right under a right to information is a derivative fundamental right under Article 19, right? Is a derivative fundamental right under Article, RTI is a derivative fundamental right under Article 19. So this is something you must know. Now, apart from this is important, you have to be very, very careful in reading the text of the options, the text of the options that are asked to you in the prelims exam as far as these questions are concerned. A lot of times you will see descriptive questions. They'll give you a long paragraph and they'll ask you which right is being violated in this paragraph, right? That paragraph will be about a concept. That paragraph is going to be about a specific set of things that have gone wrong. Remember, a lot of times, polity questions are also English comprehension questions, okay? What I mean to say is, simplify the text. Filter what is absolutely necessary from that 3-4 lines of a long text which has been given to you in the context of fundamental rights, directive principles or duties, okay? And read, if it is a question which says which of the following statements are true, they've given you 2-3 option choices, read the options carefully. There's a very good chance some of the options are going to be contradictory to each other. That either option 1 or option 3 can exist, both of them cannot exist together. right? They cannot exist together. So in such a scenario, it is extremely important and pertinent to note that you can easily eliminate option 1 versus option 3 on the basis of reading the text of the comprehension. Okay? So these are some key insights that you should always remember in mind when you're looking at questions from theme number 3 in the prelims exam. And if you could just excuse me for 20 seconds. Now, as far as the mains is concerned, and we will do a PYQ analysis of 2013 onwards questions, because that's really when the pattern has changed, and this is enough for you to know exactly what kind of questions do you have to prepare for and what kind of questions should you be ignoring, right? What are some key insights? First, when we do those doctrines, the doctrine of basic structure and the doctrine of harmonious construction, of course, in the course of our class, I'm going to have a detailed discussion right from a plethora of cases to give you some trailer into it, from say Shankari Prasad to Sajjan Singh to Golaknath to Kesananda Bharti to Minerva Mills to Vaman Rao to a very limited extent, and to I.R. Coelho, and several constitutional developments such as the First Amendment, the 17th Amendment, the 24th Amendment, the 25th Amendment, the 26th Amendment, the 29th Amendment, the 42nd Amendment, the 44th Amendment. In somewhere in the middle, you'll also see the 39th Amendment. Now, don't get overwhelmed with all of this, because the kind of questions that are asked in the mains are very analytical in nature. You don't need to know the technical, historical, or the constitutional historical developments. You need to know them insofar as it helps you understand what is going on. And to that extent, I will of course equip you with the right amount of knowledge. But what the mains exam really asks you is, for example, is the basic structure doctrine justified? How can you nullify it? Is it justified to control the parliament's power to amend the constitution? To what extent is it justified? The real questions are, what happens after all these developments? So remember this, don't get too caught up, don't get too worried about the technical details of all of this. You have to broadly look at an analysis. Second, when we look at questions that are usually asked from fundamental rights, now there are largely two kinds of questions. One, if the Supreme Court has delivered a judgment on a specific rights issue, that X law was violative of Y fundamental right, or X action or incident was violative of Y fundamental right, then the UPSC is not going to ask you whether the judgment was right or wrong, whether there is a violation or not. That's not something that they're going to ask you. They are going to ask you what happens after that judgment. For example, in 2017, when the Supreme Court, in one of modern India's most influential judgments, called the right to privacy case, or the Puttuswamy case, which actually is a case challenging certain provisions of the Aadhaar Act, and this was about the constitutionality of certain provisions and the way the Aadhaar Act was passed. The Supreme Court nonetheless declared that right to privacy is an implied fundamental right, primarily under Article 21, but also is correlative to other fundamental rights as well, right? The question that the UPSC asked you was, examine the impact or examine the scope of the recent Supreme Court judgment on the right to privacy. Now that India legitimately recognizes the right to privacy as a fundamental right, what difference is it going to make towards the evolution and the development of other issues which are driven by privacy? For example, marital rape, LGBTQ, abortion, data privacy, information privacy, the right to be forgotten, and so on and so forth. So if the judgment has been delivered to you, all you need to know is the impact of that judgment. All you need to know is the analysis of that judgment. What is that judgment going to lead to? That's the first part. If the judgment has not been delivered, right? This is something which is of extraordinary importance in the news. This is something which is in your face, and this is what usually happens in the mains exam. The kind of current affairs that they ask with respect to rights issues are in your face current affairs. They are in your face current affairs. Okay? It is something that you, even if you want to escape, you can't escape. For example, when things had reached to such a level with respect to, certain actions by the state to suppress dissent, which was expressed technologically. What I'm referring to is Section 66A of the IT Act, which later on in the Shreya Singhal case was declared as unconstitutional. And it was in news very recently because despite it being unconstitutional, there were several cases, there were several FIRs being filed across the country on a law that does not exist or on a provision of a law that does not exist. But, what did the UPSC ask and when did the UPSC ask this? UPSC asked this question in 2013. The Shreya Singhal case had not come out by then. So what the UPSC did really ask you, was what? Was this. Discuss the alleged violation of Section 66A of the IT Act. Discuss the alleged violation because there was no judgment on it yet. Things had become problematic, where I think 2 girls in Bombay were arrested over a Facebook post where they criticized the government for shutting down the city of Bombay over the death of a political leader, Bal Thackeray at that time. The post basically said that why do we have to do this? It is unnecessarily convenient, and the post was of course satirical in nature, and the government thought it was disrespectful to the lineage and the legacy of such a great political personality. Anyways, the question is, there was no judgment yet. So then the UPSC asked you, is Section 66A violative of Article 19 of the Constitution? Okay, so always remember this. If there is a Supreme Court judgment, you will always be asked the impact of it. If not, you would be asked whether or not there is a whether or not it is violative or not in the first place. Right? That is something we must understand. Now comes the most important issue. This is where students often get carried away a lot, because in India, for good or bad reasons, these two notions are an extremely important part of our society. Whether you associate with it or not, whether you acknowledge it or not, whether you want to be affected by it or not, the harsh and the dark reality remains that these two notions are an integral part of who we are. It is an identification matrix. What I'm talking about is religion and caste, right? Now, of course, these contribute a majority of developments that happen across the year. And I often see students of the civil services get into unnecessarily detail when it comes to religion and caste. And let me tell you, how exactly would the UPSC be delivering a question on this? Sorry. So, let's understand this. The UPSC is never going to ask you your opinion on a specific incident pertaining to religion or caste. You can use an incident to explain a question, that is fine. But the UPSC is never ever going to ask you very specifically your opinion on a specific issue of religion or caste. For example, the UPSC will never ask you, do you think the Sabrimala judgment was right or wrong? Do you think triple talaq is right or wrong? Do you think Maratha reservation and the issues around it were right or wrong? No. You can use this to answer larger questions on evolution of fundamental rights. But you will never be asked a direct question on your opinion. For example, this year in 2021, there was a question in the mains exam, which was, I think, the very first question, which was that constitutional morality is rooted within the Constitution and is based on its essential facets. Explain the doctrine of constitutional morality with relevant judicial decisions or examples. So you can use this Sabrimala issue as one of the examples of constitutional morality. Similarly, triple talaq, similarly, Kesananda Bharti. We'll get into discussions on how you would write an answer on that later, but you can use them to explain. But they will never ask you a detailed 10 marker or a 15 marker on what is your opinion on it. There is a reason behind it, because if the UPSC asks you your opinion on a specific religion or a caste issue, your opinion on a specific religion or a caste issue would be an opinion reflected or influenced by your own religion and caste. And the marks that you're going to get on a subjective answer would be awarded to you by an examiner who would also be influenced by his, her, or their own religion or caste. So this could be discriminatory against you to ask your opinion on a specific religion or a caste-based issue, right? Which is why they will ask you questions which are collective in nature. For example, with religion, they will ask you a question on uniform civil code. Do you think the idea of a consolidated law taking into account the variations of marriage, divorce, adoption, property across all religions in one law, is that a wise idea or not? If you can have a labor code, why can't you have a religious code, which is the Uniform Civil Code? There are points for and against this, but of course, these are questions that can be asked. You will never be asked a question on, do you think specific religious conversions are a problem? Or do you think specific issues of conversion are a problem? None of that would ever really be asked. No. Similarly, the only question the UPSC has really asked about caste is, do you think your body, such as the National Commission of Scheduled Castes, Scheduled Tribe, or Backward Classes, are they doing a good job? That is it. Because this is about upliftment of all castes in general, not a specific caste, right? Having said that, these topics also overlap with vulnerable sections in governance and also social issues. So you are supposed to have a reasoned opinion just in case you have to write it in another part of the GS or an essay, and I will train you for that. And I am sorry to say this, and please don't take it the other way. While teaching you fundamental rights, I will suspend your own fundamental right to freedom of speech and expression. Because, as you know this, my only political ideology My only political ideology is that I am a Marxist, right? Now, what kind of a Marxist I am? I am a Marxist with an S, perhaps not an X, which means my only religion, my only caste, my only purpose of existence is to make sure you get the most of this in your papers. Okay? So, whatever will be written under my strict instructions. I will give you your specific opinions on censorship, on dissent, on protest, on religion, on caste, and you will stick to those, because after all, we are here for a very specific purpose. We are all Marxists with an S and not an X. So let's remember that. Let's remember what our purposes here are. And of course, these are some of the insights that you should always remember as far as the mains exam is concerned. These are some of the insights that we must always remember as far as the mains exam is concerned. Okay? Clear? Alright. So, this is what we have to be prepared for. This is something that we have to do. This is exactly how we are going to be going about it. These are our larger objectives. Right? Now, I will introduce to you something today, and then of course we'll do substantive portions later on, and I'll introduce them to you immediately. Okay? So let's start with layer 1. Okay? Let's start with layer 1. When we start with layer 1, which is conceptual and factual in nature, and therefore is important for the prelims exam, let us first broadly understand what is it that we are talking about. What are these rights, directive, principles, duties that we keep harping upon, right? So let's understand this. Okay. Now I need you to forget about rights, directive, principles, and duties. They seem very complicated. They seem very technical. They seem very heavy things. Let's look at it from a completely unrelated angle. Let's forget about the fact that we're in a law class. Let's completely forget about the fact that we are here discussing extremely complex, sensitive subjects. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about us, average Indians, with larger than life dreams, right? That's why you are here, that's why I am here, right? So let's understand this. For a typical middle class Indian family, one of the most important milestones as far as the family is concerned, as far as you and I are concerned, is the fact that we're able to buy a car. A car buying experience in Indian society, and you could look at it from a sociological context, you could look at it from a globalization context. I'm sure there are several discourses on this, but buying a car for an average Indian family, I remember the first time I was able to afford a car, was an extraordinary experience, and it is something that you would feel very, very proud about, that okay, you've sort of been able to do something with your life. It doesn't matter if it's a big car or a small car or a long car or a broad car. It doesn't matter if it's a muscular SUV or a sleekish sedan. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you are able to buy a four-wheeler. For us average Indians, four-wheelers are our dreams. Just remember when our parents, our families, who were fortunate enough to buy their very first car. For example, most Indian families like ours, I remember the first car in my family was a Maruti 800, which my father and mother, and pardon me because both of them work, and both of them were able to pull in and get us a car. It was after I think 25 years of my father's service in the Indian Army. But anyways, let's understand this in a simple process, in a simple exercise. Okay. So that car buying experience that we are talking about, that buying experience that we are referring to, let's understand this. There are basically two kinds of people that we refer to. Two very simple kinds of people. right? One, of course, is the car buyer, the family, and of course, there is a car dealer, a person from whom we are buying the car from. And the relationship between these two will help you understand fundamental rights, directive principles of state policy, and fundamental duties. Unrelated, but they're actually very good analogies to understand how this is going to work, right? So let us start and let's understand this as clearly as possible, okay? So, when we go decide to buy a car, one of the first things that we know of is that there are certain things that come to us as entitlements. We are guaranteed these are our privileges. Nobody can take them away from us. We're guaranteed these. For example, we can take as many test drives as we want to when we're buying a car. We can ask as many questions about the car that we want to. Suppose you finalized a car and now you're getting into the technical formalities. You have the right to purchase a car insurance from anybody. It doesn't necessarily have to be the dealer. You can go online these days. You have portals which sell you insurances. You can buy the best value insurance that you want to. There's no need for you to buy the car insurance compulsorily from the dealer, right? Similarly, before you take the final delivery of the car, before you sign on the final delivery papers of the car, you have the right to conduct what is called a pre-delivery inspection. You have the right to check how many kilometers the car has run. If the car has run 100 kilometers before you've taken ownership of the car, 100 kilometers is too large a distance. The godown or the place where the cars are kept in the showroom might be what, 10 kilometers, 20, 30, 40 kilometers away. Let us say there would have been 20 kilometers of a test drive to check whether all the electrical components and the mechanical components of the car are working perfectly. I understand that. But there's absolutely no reason whatsoever, no reason whatsoever for the car to have run 100 kilometers, right? You have the right to check. You have the right to very clearly ask your car dealer, when was the car manufactured? What month of the year the car was manufactured in? If you're unhappy for any of these reasons, you can decide to not take the car. You have the option, if you're buying a car on a loan, which I strongly recommend against. But if you're buying a car on a loan, then you have the right to choose your loan partner. You don't have to necessarily go for a bank that the car dealer is recommending. Those are internal partnerships. You don't have to worry about it. Whichever bank gives you the best possible deal is the bank that you should go to. There are no two doubts about it. There are no two questions about it. Right? So that is something that we know. That is something that we're absolutely okay with. That is something that we absolutely understand. Right? So these are nothing but your rights as a car buyer. Right? Now, car buying in India is a rather emotional experience. We Indians are very emotional when it comes to buying things. We are not rational people. We're sentimental people. We believe in building a rapport with somebody that we're buying something expensive from. Like for example, when I decided to go buy a fridge a few years ago because I needed to put stuff in, and as you can see, I need a bigger fridge because I need a lot of stuff to be in that fridge. Very interestingly, I felt an emotional connection with the person who's selling me the fridge because it was a big fridge, it was some 12,000 rupees. And it's a lot of money. I felt that, that this person is going to be a part of my life forever because I'm buying a fridge for them, right? That's exactly what we're talking about. Depending on your rapport with the car dealer, if you're nice to the car dealer, if you're respectful to the car dealer, if you're polite, you are not somebody who's creating a nuisance value, you are straightforward, you are a good consumer, you are asking the right questions, you're not being impatient about it, you're conducting yourself well, then the car dealer will also try to do something from their behalf or on their behalf for you. They don't have to, but they will. Sometimes they might give you an additional discount. This is called a dealer's discount. They will reduce their margin on the car and probably give you the car for slightly cheaper. Similarly, they might sometimes give you an insurance product for free, such as a roadside assistance. Sometimes they might give you floor mats or a car cover or a seat cover or some accessories for free. Right? It all depends on your relationship, but it also depends on, are they in a place to offer this? If business has been very tight for them, they can't afford to lose every penny. Or if the business is tight for them, they have to give external discounts so that more people are able to come buy their products. It's entirely up to you. It's entirely up to the dealer. If you want to, you can, then you will. If not, there's nothing wrong. That's nothing but directive principles. If the government wants to, when the government wants to, how the government wants to, they'll want to make your life better by doing something a little extra for you. Perhaps eliminate malnutrition. Perhaps raise the standard of living. Perhaps promote cottage industries, as the directive principles tell us. It's not compulsory. If they want to, when they want to, how they want to, they'll do it for you. You cannot be fussy about it. You can't go to a court of law and say, see, the government, it's written in the constitution that the government must promote cottage industries, but in this year's budget, the allocation for promotion of cottage industries has gone down. So the government is not implementing a directive principle. The court is going to come to you and say, come here. It is up to the government. Not you, not me. You can't force them. And a more fundamental reason, a more foundational reason why you can't force them is, you can't force the government to take a policy decision, because that's why they became the government in the first place. Just imagine yourself in the shoes of the elected government. You fought one of the largest elections on the face of the planet. Indian elections are the largest democratic exercises. And that's not something to be very proud of. It's because of how populous as a country we are. It's because of the 1.3 billion people in the country that exist, and the frequency at which children are born. Of course, when we now look at fertility rates, when we look at the National Family Health Survey, things seem to be okay. But of course, India has a cascadingly high population, right? A cascadingly high population. So, what we're trying to basically say here is, and this is interesting, if you won an election, you're in the government, then at least you should have the freedom to make your own policies. Whether you want to promote cottage industries or not is entirely up to you. We can't force you to do so. And this, if you remember our 4 golden rules, is the first rule of that. Democratic mandate. You're in power, you have the mandate to make those decisions. Right? You are in power, you have the mandate to make those decisions. And because you have the mandate to make those decisions, they become extremely important. Alright? So therefore, what we are referring to is nothing but your directive principles. Now comes the duties part of it. The car has been sold to you. You have been told to be nice with the car, right? Sometimes the dealers give us a lot of gyan that don't accelerate the car for more than 100 kilometers in the first 100 kilometers for more than 80 kilometers per hour. Don't drive it rashly. When you switch on the car in the winters, let it run on ignition for about a minute or two. Right? They give you all the gyan that keep the car clean, keep the car tidy. All of those things are there, no doubt. If you don't do it, they are not going to take your car away. The dealers are not your moral police. You don't take care of your car, the car is going to get spoilt sooner, will require more maintenance. So it is in your interest to take care of the car. If you don't, nobody is going to say anything to you. Nobody is going to come to your house and say, you are a bad car owner. You don't deserve to have a car because you don't clean it every day. Cheat, bad. That's not going to happen. At no point of time is that going to happen. That's nothing but fundamental duties. You should take care of your car. If you don't, nobody is going to say anything to you. And through this very simple example, do you understand? You understand what is called, do you understand the difference between a buyer and a dealer, right? Okay? A buyer and a dealer. Clear? Understood this? Clear? Okay? All right. So now we are set. Now we are ready from tomorrow onwards, from 7 o'clock onwards, to study what is called the features of the Constitution. We're going to start with layer 2. It's going to take me about a maximum of 2 days to finish layer 1, and then it's going to take me about, if I just run you through how much time is it going to take me. It's going to take me about 2 days for layer 1. So if you've already covered this, you can join in later, because we've sort of combined batches. So this is that. It is going to take me approximately 2 days for the first and the second topic, and then it's going to take me another 2 to 3 days for applications and reforms. So 3 and 2, 5 and 2, 7, probably about 7 days, and we should be completely done with theme number 3. Then of course we'll move to theme 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. I'm expecting that by the end of this month or first week of next month, we're going to have continuous classes up until then. Your entire syllabus for the entire batches of 2021, they would be covered thoroughly. All right? Okay? So today was just a class to get you all on board. Please read the notes that I've already given to you on the Google Drive. All of you know where you'd find the Google Drive. All you've got to do is go to Google Chrome. All you've got to do is type bit.ly/polity-gov-notes Atish Mathur. You will find your handwritten notes and certain case studies. All you've got to do is scroll up here. You will find fundamental rights, directive principles and fundamental duties here. Please read them and come to class tomorrow. Be prepared. If you read and come to class, you will always understand better. You will always be able to to imbibe better, and then of course your doubts are going to be far more substantial. All right, so this is it. Let's get this started, and let's finish this up as soon as possible. Then of course we'll move to everything else, and some previous year questions will also be done at the end of layer 1. So polity previous year questions at the end of layer 1, mains previous year questions at the start of layer 2, so that you understand exactly what kind of questions to expect, right? Okay, understood? And a little bit of a challenge that I have, that I give myself, is that just by covering features and identification and a basic idea, just point 1 and 2, just an outline, before we get to the connecting phase, just till here, I guarantee you, you will be able to solve almost all previous year questions on theme 3 without even doing these in detail. Okay, right? Understood this? This is a little bit of a challenge that I'd like to give myself, that without doing them in detail, you're still able to solve previous year questions, because that's exactly how the UPSC asks these kind of questions. All right, I'll take your leave. Have a lovely evening, and I'll see you tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Okay, thank you.